The ongoing pandemic has made the plight of the Filipinos overseas all too clear. For instance, many of our OFWs are among the hardest hit by the tide of unemployment and income loss. Border closures and quarantine are common, all resulting in restrictions on movements that affect labor arrangements here and abroad. Similarly, our Filipinos studying and living abroad also experience this disproportionate impact of the pandemic. Over an hour and so, we will be hearing personal stories from three young Filipinos who are currently studying, working, and living abroad. We will listen to them and understand how they're able to cope with the ongoing pandemic and draw possible policy insights from them too. No pressure. And more importantly, we want to see interesting similarities in unique experiences they had or having, and perhaps compare this with what we are currently experiencing here back home in the Philippines. Welcome to UP Korea Research Center Public Forum entitled Ang Buhay Pinoy sa Gitna ng Pandemya. This online event is organized by the University of the Philippines Korea Research Center in partnership with Ateneo de Manila University Chinese Studies Program. I am Marshall Murillo from the de Naga University Department of Social Sciences, and I will be your moderator for today's event. Isang mapagpalang araw ng kagitingan po sa ating lahat at hello rin po mula dito sa Naga City, Bicol. Kumusta po kayo? We are delighted to welcome our participants who are joining with us in the safety of their homes through the UPKRC YouTube channel. I heard pinapanood tayo ngayon ng ating mga kaibigan sa Luzon, Visayas at sa Mindanao. Hello po sa inyong lahat. Now, at this point, please allow me to provide a brief background of our organizers of today's program. The UP Korea Research Center was launched in April 2016 to provide Filipino scholars and researchers with opportunities to widen their interest in Korean studies. The center conducts various academic and cultural activities for scholars and professionals and serves as a university-wide hub that promotes and develops Korean studies in the Philippines. So for more information and updates on UPKRC, you may visit their Facebook page at www.facebook.com/UPKRC. And Ateneo Chinese Studies Program, or the CSP program, seeks to impart knowledge and develop expertise in Chinese studies in order to improve the relations between the Philippines and China through a better understanding of China, promote harmonious relations between ethnic Chinese and larger Filipino communities, increase the understanding of Chinese heritage of Philippine culture, and promote Ateneo's vision of person for others through the teaching of certain Chinese values. The CSP program offers both minor and major programs. The courses offered include Mandarin, Chinese history, politics, economics, and society and culture. Thank you again, UPKRC and Ateneo CSP, for making this forum possible. So now, let me share with you the schedule of our forum. There will be three parts. The first part is the sharing of our panels. And the next part is the roundtable discussion. And last but equally the exciting part is also the open forum. If you have any questions or comments to the presentation of the panel members, kindly post them through YouTube chat box because later during our open forum, we will address them through the respective speakers. All right, let's keep this ball rolling. So as mentioned, this afternoon, we are privileged to have three young panel members from Wuhan, China, Niigata, Japan, and Seoul, Korea. Each panel member will share 5 minutes of their personal memories and stories in the middle of the pandemic. But before that, let's briefly introduce them one by one. This is also the order of the presentation. So our first speaker is John Robert Go. He is an assistant professor of political theory at the Department of Political Science of the University of the Philippines, Diliman. He is currently doing his doctoral studies in political theory at the School of Politics and International Studies of the Central China Normal University in Wuhan. Great to see you again, Rob. Our second speaker is Kathleen Lasponia. Kath has been living in Korea since 2018. Her journey began as she pursued her master's degree in international studies in Seoul University in 2020. She previously worked as a news coordinator at GMA Network Incorporated and currently works at Sales and Marketing Department of E9 Remittance, Seoul, Korea. And our last but definitely not the least speaker, Dr. Julius Martinez. Doc Julius is an associate professor in the Faculty of International Studies at Niigata University of International and Information Studies, Japan. Doc Julius, a certified BTS fan or ARMY, as they say, has been living in Japan since 2005. Ladies, gentlemen, and non-binary friends, let's give our panel members a virtual round of applause. All right, so as I've mentioned, the order of presentation will be Rob, Kath, and Doc Julius. So Rob, the virtual floor is now yours. Rob?
Oh, hello.
Yeah, we can hear you, Rob.
Okay. So, hello everyone. I'm going to share my slides. Sorry for that delay. May tumawag lang. Anyway, so I'm basically sharing my experience here in Wuhan, and I think this is fairly interesting for many of us because, as everyone knows, it all began here, right? I mean, we don't know what it was, and then it all started here. The first few cases were reported here in Wuhan. So I guess the experience here is quite unique. Okay, and personally, it was something I would never imagine to have experienced in my lifetime. Nobody would want anyway, but here we are. So Wuhan is in central China, and well, that's why my school is Central China Normal University. So but yeah, it's located in central China. It's a bustling metropolis, no, so there's a lot of things there. I want to share my experience, and basically this is the sharing I would be doing is based on a series of uh, pictures and a couple of videos. No, it did not detail much of the experience, but I want to give an idea of how things went. And to begin is this one. This was the pre-New Year festivities in Bible Team Church. So this was in January 10. There were already cases during that time, and still they continued to conduct the pre-New Year festivities. There were a lot of people. So basically, I think this particular area here in Wuhan recorded a lot of cases. Um, and here you see. Parang balita na siya everywhere. There is a virus of a certain kind, and during this time naglalabas na ng bulletin ang WHO, and but people are still doing business as usual, and here they're doing the one you post at the doors, no. By January 22, sobrang konti na ng tao for two reasons. First, Chinese New Year in 3 days, January 25, 2020. And then, nag-uwian na lahat ng mga tao. I mean, karamihan ng mga tao, like students, yung mga workers, they go back to their hometowns, no? And the second reason is that people are not very much keen to going out because nga of the virus, no? At dumadami na yung cases by this time. Um, here's a video. I don't know if you can see this clearly. Pero ito yung street where a university is along. Okay, so this is the Zodauco area. Okay. And no, by January 23, nag-lockdown na yung Wuhan. And this is how the lockdown, I mean, Wuhan at night. And this is actually around 5 p.m., no? So medyo madilim na. Pero walang ibang sasakyan. I think this one here is an ambulance and the other one on the right side is a private vehicle. So because at that time, ayun na lang may mga sasakyan ang makakalabas. Lahat ng tindahan dito sarado na. You can see the lights in the establishments but the stores are all closed. So ang unang pinaka-concern doon is saan kami kakain. Kasi the canteen would also be have limited capacity kasi nga vacation time, limited staffing, limited everything is limited. No? And then they decided to lock down. So parang ano na mangyayari? Okay, so this was me inside in the university. It's good na actually before the lockdown, I was able to order hundreds of masks, and this is wala na yung mga N95 na sinasabi nila. Ang bilis na ubos nun. So I tried to find some alternatives and I still have some of this mask now kasi hindi rin naman masyado nagamit when I was lockdown in the building. By February 3 or 2, the school decided to keep us inside the building. Like no one can exit the building anymore. And that was even abrupt kasi February 1st nakakalabas pa kami and then there was ang sinabi lang sa amin magkakaroon na ng food rationing the following day but they did not say that it was because the building will be on lockdown. No, they will lock. And literally lock. Kasi I remember trying to go out February 2 morning to go to the bank and then there's chains in it. No, naka-chain na yung door. So, no chance, no. And then by February, it's still around winter time. So,
Parang nag-stop yata yung video ni ano.
Okay, I think Rob is having a problem with his connection right now. Rob, are you still there? Ayan, all right.
I'm sorry.
Okay.
Where was I?
Sa
Okay.
snow, no? Yeah.
So, yun nga, nag-snow. So, hindi na namin siya na-enjoy. Nasa loob lang kasi kami ng building the whole time. And some of the students, actually, it's their first time to see the snow. So, they were kind of sad because they cannot play. Alam mo naman, especially most of my friends here are fellow Southeast Asians. When they see the snow, they get excited. So, yeah. Anyway, so... And then I started doing volunteer work kasi medyo nakakabagot din naman yung ano, no. And then nandito lang sa kwarto mag-isa because I have a single room, no, because I'm a PhD student. I don't have a roommate. And then classes already started around this time, no. I think that's the spring term which has started. A couple of weeks later, nagtawag yung school if there are any people who are willing to volunteer, and because we have to distribute food 3 times a day. So I said, oh, why not? Maybe something else to do aside from doing my schoolwork. Okay, and then aside from watching Netflix, syempre pag natapos mo na yung pinapanood mo, wala ka na ibang gagawin. So, yeah. So, I help in the distribution of food. So here's a sample of our meal. We get fruits, vegetables. So parang meron kaming some sort of a diet, no. Nakakatawa nga kasi parang halos lahat nun ay nag we lost weight, we got, some people got slimmer and things like that because nga nakarasyon lang yung pagkain. So kung ano lang yung binibigay, yun lang kinakain namin. Because everywhere else, no, ganun din ang situation. Mahirap, especially meat. Wala masyadong meat ng mga pagkain kasi mahirap yung meat. And then at one point, we were able to contact a fruit distributor. So nagkaroon ng fruit deliveries din sa aming building. And I also volunteered to deliver the fruits. So I think my coping mechanism was the volunteer work, no? So para may outside interaction, para hindi lang ako nakakulong dito sa loob ng kwarto. Kasi even if we are all inside the building, I think there are around 100 of us left in the building. We are not allowed to gather. Kasi nga, malay mo may mga carrier dyan or asymptomatic within the building and we're still observing. Okay. So by April 8 na wala na yung lockdown. So actually it's almost a year, no, since na lift yung lockdown dito sa Wuhan. Kita nyo naman medyo mahaba na yung buhok ko diyan. Kasi walang gupitan sa loob ng building. So pero I think it's a nice indicator of how long we have been inside the building, no? Kung gaano kahaba yung buhok. In fact, napansin namin lahat na ang hahaba na ng mga buhok namin compared from what we were before. Pumayat, nag-iba yung itsura, and things like that. But eventually, after the lifting of the lockdown, yung iba nagkakain na ng mga gusto nilang pagkain, yung hindi nakain ng lockdown, nag-aayos na, and then bumalik na ulit sa mga dating itsura. Okay, so stores are closed during this time, so may mga ration pa rin ng food. We can still go around. Pero itong when the lockdown was lifted in Wuhan, hindi agad kami pinalabas ng school kasi it's not a guarantee that the outside, the city is already safe, no. So parang ginawa nila, preserve nila yung nasa loob ng school na lahat ito ay negative sa COVID. Ayan. Ito naman, nakapagpagupit na ako, finally. Okay, nagbukas na rin yung mga barbershops. Actually, yung mga barbershops at this time, mga volunteers sila. So you just pay, I think, a 10 kwai or roughly 70 pesos, no, in the Philippines. Or 60 pesos pala. So, ganun. So volunteer run na yung halos lahat, pati yung mga markets kasi hindi pa bukas yung mga big markets. Ito yung first time ko nakalabas ng school at nakita ko na halos back to normal na kasi yung mga sasakyan, ayan, andyan na ulit. And then bukas na rin yung mga malls, no, by July. Kita nyo naman, traffic na agad. So parang this is the Wuhan that I remember before the lockdown. No? Parang it's busy, bustling, and everyone's out there. In fact, by August, meron ng, I think Marshall would know this place, itong World City. Baka nagtatambay siya dito kasi malapit to sa sa Has, no, sa Huaco. So meron na agad silang dito, parang contest, no, talent portion or talent show. Okay, and kita mo naman ang dami na nagtao nag-gather. Although mapapansin mo may naka-mask o kaya yung mga mask nila nakababa na. Wala pang vaccine this time. Okay. And then we also continued our volunteer work. Ito ay sa isang subway station sa Shunliman. I don't know if Marshall have been here. Okay. So yeah. So with Chinese and other international students. And then in our school, we already had the sports fest October 2020. I think in the Philippines they were still on the quarantine zone or period, no. So medyo relax na dito kasi sigurado naman na lahat ng tao sa school ay negative sa COVID. Okay, kita mo naman. Ito yung opening ng sports fest, so napakaraming tao. And this one is New Year's Eve, no, December 31. I think napabalita na rin to sa sa lahat, no, yung large gathering of people, pati yung swimming party sa Hongshan District. Malapit yun dito, pero hindi ako pumunta kasi hindi naman ako marunong lumangoy. Pero ayun nga. Marami ng tao, and in fact ngayon nagsimula na rin kasi yung vaccines, so mas relax na yung mga tao. Okay? Maybe we can talk about the vaccine period later during the discussion, pero yun. Yun yung experience ko dito. It's just a quick overview, no, but yeah, that's it. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you, Rob. No, later we have questions. Actually, we invite our viewers to actually type their questions for Rob later. No. Okay. Let's now proceed to our next speaker. Kath, are you ready?
Hi, hello. Can you hear me?
Yes, clear, audible.
Okay. For bago i-play yung presentation, I would just like to say that this is something different because as you know, I'm very young here in Korea. Well, compared sa iba, I'm barely 3 years dito. So what I wanted to show is how I came here and then what are the changes, especially for me. Yung focus kasi for me is more on yung transition ko yung as a student. So naging student ako dito, and yung life as a foreign international student before COVID and what happened after COVID. And then I've asked also few friends and how they're getting through the pandemic with their international student life. So I will just introduce myself because I'm not so famous unlike the mga kasama natin dito. So can you help me turn to the next slide, please? Okay, so this is my student life. It's all, as you can see, very open siya. I came here 2018. I get to enjoy what's really it's like to be an international student. You get to meet, you get to join your teachers, like you can have free, sobrang free niya. 'Di ba? So, yung ano yung ine-expect mo pagpunta mo sa international student ka? It's not just about also, syempre, you have to study, gain educational experience, but also part of the experience is being with your international, co-international students, which is, I think I was very lucky na kasi noong time na yun, wala pang COVID, so we get to gather as much as we want to. So yung sa next, very brief lang naman, let's go to the next. And then, yes, I was able also to do, join, language programs. As you know, dito sa Korea, we have to learn the language so we can make the best out of our moments. And then, at pre-pandemic to. So, free lang kayong mag-join ng mga, ng mga language exchange programs. You get to meet friends freely without restrictions. So, yan yung mga na-experience ko with pre-pandemic. And then, moving on. Yes, let's go. And then, of course, we get to experience the 4 seasons here in Korea. Very beautiful. Meron dito pre-pandemic period na, but this is just showing, how it was. May pandemic na nitong time na to, nung 3 photos na to. But still, I just wanted to show yung mga experiences here in Korea. And then next, and then, of course, before pandemic, we get to have gatherings. This yung nakaparot saya ko was an event hosted by Iko, the scholars here in South Korea. So may mga ganun pang gathering. Also, the other one is this is the annual Christmas gathering of Filipinos here in South Korea. This is 2019. So may mga ganito pang event before the pandemic, which is, yun yung mga bagay na nilulook forward namin halos every year kasi at least we get to meet yung mga kasama natin, Pinoy na kasama natin dito sa South Korea. And then, yan. Nag-move forward siya. No, we still want to have, yan. This is when the COVID started here in Korea. I think it's around February last year, mga around March, yan yung medyo nagkakagulo na. Kasi it started, dito sa Korea, ang case is nag-start siya sa Daegu. So yung isang church doon largely nagsimula yung bulk cases of patients. And then, diyan na nagsimula yung nagkaubusan na ng mga mask. As you can see, hindi pa ako nakamask niyan kasi wala akong mabilhan that time. Tapos, sobrang nag-overprice yung mga mask. Kaya na-interview sa 24 oras and for the DCBP because they wanted to know yung situations ng mga Filipino dito sa South Korea. I think we can stop from there. We can stop from there with the presentation. Ayan, yung graduation, hindi na siya walang ceremony. Usually may ceremony, but as you can see, wala na. Nag-self-photo na lang kami kasi bawal ang gathering, which is, ito lang yung sad part kasi as a foreign student, you wanted to invite your parents. Nakaplan na sana na pumunta yung parents ko, but it ended up yung mag-isa akong tinapos mag-isa sa graduation, which is also sad. And then yun yung mga isa sa mga fallback. But I cannot imagine yung feeling ng mga students nowadays. You can close the presentation. I think we're done. It's okay. We can close. And then ang sad part lang is with the students now, I've been asking students na, how do you feel na international students ka but it feels like kahit nasaan ka naman sa world pwede mong gawin kasi online siya. It's very, medyo babawasan yung excitement daw when you're in the class kasi part of the discussion yung more on sharing ng culture pero dahil may technological barrier for the meantime, medyo limited yung experience as they may say it. So, ganun mostly yung dinadanas ng mga international students. But beyond that, Korea has always been trying their best na ma-normalize yung life mo, which is I think we can further discuss later. And for now, ngayon is I think we are leaning, masakit man siyang aminin, pero as per the news, we are going to the fourth wave, if they may say it. So I think we can discuss that later along with the other discussions. And that's it for Korea for now. We will get back.
Thank you, Kath. Yeah.
Yeah.
Talaga nabago after when the pandemic really hits.
Yes.
All right, sige. Doc Julius, your turn.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, hello, hi. Okay, so I'll briefly, I only have 3 slides to describe to everybody how life is right now. So my presentation will be backwards chronology. So on the first slide that you can see, this is Shibafu the cafe. It's in Hibiya in Tokyo. Shibafu means grass. So if you translate it to English, it means cafe in the green grass or cafe in the grass. So as you can see in the photo, which I actually took from a broadsheet here. So as you can see, yung Japanese people or mostly the customers are observing social distancing. And that's how life is actually here nowadays. So we're observing social distancing in different places, public places, in the parks or in coffee shops, and even in workplaces or institutions. But I'm not so sure if this is also happening in different parts of the world because we also have different cases here. So that's how it goes. And then the second photo, okay, not that, yung yan, okay. So this is the second photo. This is in Niigata. So that's the tallest building, and the name of the building is Media Ship or Next 21. So I took this like a couple of months ago. So if you see at the top of the building, there's a red light, which means that it's an alert to all Niigata residents. And what that alert means is it's a COVID-19 alert. So at the top, it has different colors. So when it means when it shows red color, it means it's a high alert. So it could be anything like tsunami or missile alert, okay, from neighboring countries. But this time it's a COVID-19 alert. So this was a couple of months ago. and which means that in Niigata, COVID-19 cases were increasing at that time and even until now. So that's how that's one way of how the local government alerts the people that by showing those kinds of the red signs or red lights um, on the top of the building. So there are two tallest buildings here in Niigata. So that's one of the tallest buildings over there. Okay, next slide. All right, so what is it now? So this is my class, which was taken, when was this? Spring semester. Yeah, spring semester. Oh no, fall semester. So spring semester, we were online classes. We were doing it online. And yeah, it was not really that popular among the students. So we gave a sensing report or asked the students to fill out a questionnaire where they express what they feel about online classes, and most of them felt depressed, and most of them felt left out or left behind, and they didn't really want to do online classes because for so many reasons, personal and other reasons. So the succeeding semester, we decided to do it face to face, and of course, we did a lot of measures. Our university, for example, like wearing face mask, and then there's hand sanitizers in front of the door. So this is my third year college, third year university students. And then, yeah, so yeah, we were wearing masks, and it was very hard, especially on my part, because if you do lecture style or if you do interactive classes and you're wearing a mask, it's really hard to communicate and it's really hard to interact. So that's how, that's what I've been feeling, most recently, especially if you're teaching language classes or if you're teaching or if you're managing large classes here. So marami, there's a lot of things that we need to take care of. And most of the students, in terms of attendance, we were very lenient. It means that if they feel sick or just fever, okay, they don't need to explain. They just, need to tell us that, okay, I'm not coming because I'm not feeling well, without any, other more detailed explanations about their health. This is because of privacy and confidentiality. So students are not really required to tell, their whole, complete, health, wellness or being, unless they really want to tell them publicly. But in our university, so this is the policy. We don't really know who is sick or who is really healthy. So that's how it is right now. But so far, so good. Some students reported, like feverish or flu or pneumonia, okay, but not really COVID, related. And then, but in other universities, I've heard that there are also COVID cases or infections. So yeah, so that's how it is right now. So it's a backward chronology, So right now, social distancing, public places are open. And then whenever there's a red high alert, it means that COVID cases are increasing. So the local government informs us what to do and then alerts us. And then in my university, yeah, so we're back to face, no online classes, but lots of measures or safety measures in place. Yeah, that's it. Thank
All
you.
right. Thanks, Doc Julius. All right, let's now proceed to the second part, the round table, because I do while listening to the three panel members here, I'm also typing questions because I'm really curious, no. So I think Rob, tell us, because mukhang ang dami mong ginawa even before the vaccine went out, no. May mga may mass testing bang nangyari sa Wuhan? And if there is, no, if there was, paano ito ginawa? Because again, sa international news nalaman namin na halos lahat ng populasyon sa Wuhan ay na test, no? That's
Yes.
why some countries are even saying na can we do it, no? Sige, Rob.
Yeah, there was mass testing. Actually, I don't remember which month. Oh, meron ako sa app. Meron kasing app yan eh. I don't know. Can you still hear me? We
Yes,
have
we can hear you.
an app. It's a Hubei app. Okay, and then we just enter our details and everything is there. So I was tested noong May. Okay. So noong May nagkaroon ng, well, that's part of the citywide testing. Everyone was tested. I think around 10 million people were tested within 14 days. Okay. Because ang fear nila magkaroon ng second wave, no? And to prevent that, what they did was to test everyone, then isolate all the asymptomatics and those who tested positive, which I think was less than 100 of the 9,900,000 people they tested. So by doing that, na identify agad nila, no, and isolate yung cases and then prevent further spread of the virus. I think that's what they did here. So to answer the question, there was mass testing. It's free as well. It's covered by the Wuhan city government. So they tested everyone. First, they tested, of course, the Chinese, the employees, and then we, the students, because we were on lockdown for a long time naman. So just to make sure that we are negative, we were tested too. Yeah.
All right. And also, Kath, meron bang mass testing na naswab ba kayo after ninyo freely makalabas ng inyong mga kwarto sa Korea?
Actually, dito sa Korea, medyo iba siya eh. As you, 'di ba, makikita naman natin sa news, medyo iba yung atake nila. Okay? They tried to i-maximize na i-limit yung mga bawal para hindi mahirapan yung daily life ng mga tao. Kasi sabi nila, we are looking at sustainable solution, hindi lang yung for the meantime solution. Okay, ila-lockdown mo siya, yung isang city. As you know, hindi nag-lockdown ng Korea, ng per city, unlike di ba sa Philippines, what's happening right now, o bawal yung mga CQ policy, actually walang ganun sa Korea. But kasi they have this recently, actually nagkaroon ng parang mass testing, if you may say it, but it's more on a mandatory testing for foreigners. Specifically lang siya for foreigners. But hindi siya nag-continue kasi dapat naka-receive na ako ng text message na you are asked to be tested on this from this date to this date, so kailangan kang pumunta sa mga health center to do such. Kaya lang merong parang mini outcry for doing so kasi bakit daw ang mga foreigners lang ang minandate na mag-test. Bakit sila lang yung mga nire-require mag-test? Well, apparently, hindi naman kami nakakalabas ng Korea. So technically, we are still having, hindi kami nanggaling kung saan elsewhere. But I think nangyari yung ganong ruling, nagbunga siya dahil may isang factory dito. I think sa isa northern part sa Namyangju, nagkaroon ng isang factory na almost 120 foreigners. So doon medyo yung mga citizen na parang yung mata is na andoon sa mga foreigner. But that's not a bad thing at all. Why for me? Kasi it's totally free. The government is supporting it. At least you get to know. I mean, hindi naman siya, I think, discrimination on that part. But as yung naging parang silver lining lang doon is naka-focus na foreigners lang ang mandatory. But actually, here in Korea, it's not mandatory, but it's highly encouraged. Wala ka mang symptoms, may symptoms ka. If you wanna get tested, then you get free access to the health centers if you want to. So mandatory lang siya kapag meron kang contact or kasama ka sa isang building na may nag-test na positive. Then you will be sent a notification that you have to get tested. So ganun yung atake ng Korea lessening the burden doon sa social and a personal life. So parang walang COVID, they're trying their best na hindi maramdaman doon sa social and personal life mo. Ganun siya.
Right. And it's libre for foreigners, no? Wow.
Libre. Actually, if I may say it, legal or non-visa holder ka dito, it doesn't matter. You will not be caught in any case possible. Basta magpa-test ka lang. That's what they want, if you want to.
Right. How about in Japan, Julius?
No mass testing. Okay, so there's no mass testing. They have an approach. Yung approach nila, they call it cluster-based approach. So what that approach means is that they identify different clusters or different groups, and that's the only group that they're going to test. So for example, they will identify a group of, say, workers in a bar. Okay, and then so all the employers in that bar or all the employees in that bar working in that bar, so they will test, and then after that they will identify those clusters, okay, which are vulnerable or which are COVID risky. So based on those clusters, they're doing those kinds of testing, and then they identify clusters. Okay, so for example, vulnerable clusters based on mass testing, based on testing were those who work in bars because it's closed space, and then those who work in, I don't know, in izakaya. Okay, so these are pubs, yun sa mga nagiinuman. Okay, and then those who work in, let's say, onsen or in a public bath. So what the government has done is not mass testing, but identifying particular groups which can be or who are very vulnerable to COVID. And then, however, this turns out to be very problematic. So maybe later I can explain that. So going back to your question, no mass testing. So they used a cluster-based approach.
A cluster-based approach. Wow, that's interesting.
Yeah.
While we're at it, Doc Julius, you mentioned that it's already a norm in Japan that you have this F2F or face-to-face classes already. And, you know, in the Philippines, they're still studying that. But ako curious ako, bakit siya naging posible? Is it because, di ba normally pag sa Japan, naka-dorm yung mga estudyante? Is it because of that particular structure? At paano pumayag yung mga parents na i-allow yung mga anak nila for a face-to-face setup given that they are not yet vaccinated? No? Are they purely convinced with the measures done by these higher education institutions? Can you tell us more?
Well, it really depends on where the university is. So a lot of universities in Tokyo, I heard they're still online because Tokyo is a highly urbanized metropolitan city. And then also in Osaka, so a lot of universities are still online. Now, those universities which are doing face-to-face are mostly outside of Tokyo and Osaka and Kyoto, okay, such as Niigata. But there are some, it also depends on the population. So for example, in a university, there are fewer number of students, and in some universities, there are larger numbers of students. Yeah, so what the government did was to leave the decision or leave the discretion to universities to decide, depending on the demographic, depending on the parents. Yeah, you're correct. We also, on our side, on the university, we asked the parents first, okay, surveyed if they feel comfortable sending their students face-to-face. Now, sending their children face-to-face. Some were adamant, okay, not to really do face-to-face classes. Because most of the parents, you have to understand, in Japan, it's an elderly population. Okay, very elderly, karamihan. So matatanda na talaga. So they're very vulnerable to COVID. So that's the worry of the parents. So if they're going to send their children to the university back to face, and then they may, unfortunately catch the virus and then go back home. So baka mahawa sila yung mga parents too. So that's also one reason. But in our university, very few resisted face-to-face. So they really want to do it face-to-face. Most parents and most students actually resisted online. Why? Because of feelings of isolation and feelings of depression and helplessness. Because you also have to understand that there's also a high suicide rate here in Japan. So anything that makes them feel hopeless or isolated, and they cannot interact face to face with their peers or with their friends. Okay, that may contribute to high suicide cases. So yeah, that's it. So I think it's a tricky question. So kung face to face classes or online classes, it really depends on the demographic. But we have to always survey what the parents feel, survey what the children or what the students feel, and also the resources of the university. If the university cannot provide masks to students, or if they don't have health insurance to their employees, I don't think that universities should open or should go back face to face. I think universities, they have this moral obligation or responsibility to make sure that doing face to face, both for parents, both for students, and then the teachers also, would be really safe for everybody. So if you don't have those kinds of resources or measures, I don't think that university should open. Yeah, so it really depends on the university.
Depends on the resource of the university, demographics. It's also the number of cases in that prefecture or
Right.
cities.
Mhm.
Thank you, Julius.
Yeah.
Rob, I heard in Wuhan and probably parts of China, open na, no? I mean, literally, pwede na face-to-face without even wearing masks. Is that correct? Is that correct?
Yeah, classes. Yeah, we
Yes.
started since September 2020. We already did face-to-face classes, and yeah, without mask inside the classroom. It's funny, we don't have mask inside the classroom, but when we go outside, we wear the mask. Okay, so yeah. Basically, kasi before you get into the university, you have to get a negative result. So students cannot just return. There's a period, they have to be tested before this period that they can enter the university. Kumbaga, the opening of the semester is on September 1. The university gives all the students the time like between August 28 to September 1 to go to Huasher. And then then before that, dapat nakapagpa-test na sila para masubmit yung results sa university. It's online. It's done online. And then they will receive a notification that their application to return to the university has been approved. And then saka sila pwedeng bumalik. So at that time, lahat ng nasa loob ng campus, they're negative. The tests are negative. And then they'll be allowed to get in. And then they will have to stay here for 14 days within the campus, not get out. So parang may quarantine period pa rin. But after 14 days, which is about the first 2 weeks of September, nag-open up na yung campus na pwede nang lumabas, and then kasi nga medyo at ease na yon. And then for the longest time, wala na rin namang new cases sa Wuhan, no? I think since last year. So
parang may layer of security na hindi ka mahahawa sa mga classmates mo because negative naman sila.
Yes, and also the faculty and the staff.
And faculty and staff as well.
No?
Kasi sa China, it's a community, no? Hindi lang siya parang campus talaga. It's entire community. So lahat ng nasa campus kailangan matest, no?
Yes, matest, and then they have to return a negative result.
Yeah, exactly.
And then only then saka lang pwede magbalikan. Ang problema is, I think, with international students kasi many of international students went back home either before the lockdown because it's winter break na. So umuwi sila, or yung mga nag-repatriate. Okay? And then they cannot return because kahit with student visas, the Chinese government said, no, you cannot go back yet. So ang difficulty nila ngayon, I think, is the online classes. Because like for example, in my case, I'm the only international student in my class, so they will not open one class for me if I'm abroad and take online classes there, diba? So may mga ganun kasing cases, especially for bachelor students. So mahirap yun. So what they do is to delay. No, they apply for I don't
Extension.
know how. Yeah, extension, no, suspension of the scholarship, no. So yon. And then yung mga nandito, they attend the face-to-face classes.
Right.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. Kath, I know you already graduated, but in your case ba, may mga naririnig ka na bang face-to-face classes sa Korea?
Sa Korea in general kasi, also depende sa level ng city nyo. Let's say yung Seoul is naka 2.5 level or yung other parts is naka 1.5 or lesser. So depende yung approach. Pero with the students in general, merong face-to-face, all must siya. Kaya lang may mga schools na like A, halimbawa, section A ka, so half ng students will go to Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. And then the other half will go to the Tuesday and Thursday, and the rest is online. Kumbaga, kalahati ng class is online, kalahati ng class is offline. But sabay yung class. So may mga ganong approach. Pero ngayon mukhang wala na naman ulit, fully online na naman dahil medyo umangat na naman yung cases namin. Kasi yung normal na from January this year is bumaba na siya ng up to 400 eh. Apparently nung March, umangat na naman up to this date, naging highest siya kahapon, I think yung 700 na naman. Maliit na number siya kung titingnan, but with Korea's na yung lahat ng efforts nila na ginagawa so far, tapos ganun yung cases, it's something na also painful for the government. So, yung 700 na count na yon tumaas na. So, nagbabanta na naman na mag-tighten na naman yung mga protocol, social distancing protocols. Like, for example, dati naging 9 o'clock lang yung mga restaurants. Then, sometime in February or March, in-extend nila up to 10 o'clock. And then, tumaas na naman yung cases. So, we are looking at higpit na naman lalo yung social distancing. Pero, with cafeterias, tuloy-tuloy pa din for until dapat hanggang 4 na tao lang. Bawal kayo maging 5 sa isang, papasok kayo ng restaurant, not more than 5 people, except for family, registered family kayo. So, ganun lang siya. Ganun yung mga security measures nila ngayon. But with the classes, depende sa area, merong half-half, merong fully online.
Right. So tumataas yung kaso. Would you happen to know why? Is it because of the Spring Festival that happened in Korea?
No, close nila kung yung mga nakapunta na, for those who are watching na nakapunta na dito sa Korea, merong sobrang special na spot for spring, yung sa Yeouido Park. But that's closed na. Sinara na nila as a preventive measure kasi nga it's getting high na naman. So ang nakikita na naman nilang cases for COVID nga is yung mga gathering, and then yung 10 o'clock na in-extended, they're looking at, in-extend kasi yung time from 9 o'clock to 10. Actually, it's not a big difference. Kaya lang, pag 10 o'clock, what I personally observed, di ba hanggang 10 o'clock lang yung mga restaurants, so pag uwian, sabay-sabay 10 o'clock. So sobrang jam-pack yung mga public transportation. Parang it defeats the purpose na iniksian yung oras na hanggang 10 o'clock lang. As you know, yung culture ng Korea, after work, may mga gathering, extension of work, yung tinatawag nilang weshik, o yung company dinners. So, para ma-lessen yon, ginawa nila yung ganon, yung parang not more than 4 people, tapos hanggang 10 o'clock lang, but nadidefeat yung purpose kasi pag 10 o'clock, sabay-sabay kayo lahat sa bus. So, siksikan yung bus. So, I don't know. For me, parang nadidefeat talaga yung purpose, yung efforts ng government kapag patuloy na ganun yung mga nangyayari. But still, Korea is standing doon sa kanilang parang simula pa lang sinasabi na nila na hindi natin kailangan isuppress ng fully yung social and personal life ng mga tao. So as much as they're giving freedom, ganun din naman yung in fairness naman sa citizens, sa lahat, sumusunod sa mga every 2 weeks kasi yung pagbaba ng protocol eh. Let's say yung Seoul 2.5 ngayon. So lahat ng mga schedules, mag-follow kayo sa 2.5 protocol. Let's say next month, naging 2, then mag-change na naman yung mga schedules. So every 2 weeks yung observation nila with the flow ng cases dito sa South Korea.
Right. Thanks, Kat. Actually, we shall now entertain questions from other participants who's actually watching, who are now watching live, no? It has something to do with what you just mentioned, Kath, no? Sabi dito, Korea is concerned with the fourth wave, no? Although numbers are steady without drastically going up, but as you mentioned, medyo tumataas. For
Tumaas siya.
this for these many business sectors, they're affected. And how's life of the Filipino nationals in different workplaces who are employed in Korean firms? Are they protected, vaccinated already? Would you happen to know?
So far with the vaccination, as I was checking, mga nasa 1 million pa lang yung natototal na vaccine na vaccine na. And then, but yung Korea, they are looking at sometime in November, mga 12 million na daw. But we don't have any news yet if foreigners are included, or will there be a separate registration for that, or it's going to be done by city. So far wala pang ganong clear na announcement for directives for us foreigners here. But with the work, especially that I'm working directly sa remittance company, so mostly of our customers here are those who are working here in Korea. So maririnig mo yung stories nila, like hindi sila pinapalabas ng mga owners nila, not because ayaw silang maggala for the weekend or during their off. But because kasi pag yung isa yung na-infect, yung style kasi dito magkakasama sila sa dormitory, magkakasama sila sa factory. So isa lang ang ma-infect, buong factory isasara. Also with us employees like us na nasa building nag-work, let's say ma-affect ako, yung buong building i-close just because of me. And then that's what as a foreigner, yun pa yung lalo namin kailangan i-careful kasi parang dahil sa isang foreigner, alam mo yun, mahirap eh. Kasi di ba parang you have to be extra careful kasi you will be tagged as foreigner, not just your name. Or you will be tagged as a whole, as a Filipino. Isang Filipino, pagka lumabas ka naman sa news, hindi naman pangalan mo lang yung nakalagay. Pag lumabas ka sa news, yung nationality mo ang lalabas, which will also affect the image or yung behavior ng Filipino as a citizen, as a resident living here in Korea. So, yon.
Yon. Speaking of foreigners living in different country in the midst of pandemic, I've heard kasi I used to study in Wuhan and I still have friends who's actually living in Korea and in Wuhan. And them actually experience a sort of discrimination coming from their neighbors and even some of their foreign Chinese, no. How was it? Is it really true na nadi-discriminate ang mga foreigners, especially nung kaputukan ng COVID-19? Rob, would you like to enlighten us with that news about discrimination?
Within China?
Yeah. Or even in Wuhan?
Well, I personally, wala akong experience ng being discriminated as I don't know, because if I wear the mask, hindi mo minsan nga
Right.
Chinese. So I don't know with myself, no? I haven't experienced any form of discrimination. But well, of course, I have friends from Africa. And yeah, there's discrimination, of course, kasi you can, but I think the discrimination is not just because of the COVID, but even pre-COVID, siguro meron ng ganong klaseng sentiments about other races from the Chinese point of view. I'm not saying they are racist, no, but there are occasions of discrimination. I think what you're saying is that which I also read, I think yung about sa McDo
sa Guangzhou ata no?
Guangzhou, because they said, because the fear is now the people coming from the outside are now bringing it back. I think that's the sentiment. And then of course, because the subject is the foreigner coming back to China, so parang ang perception is discrimination, especially of course in Chinese they use 黑人, di ba? Black person literally to refer to African. So So if you read it that way, literally as black person, so meron talagang racial underpinnings yung ganong term. But I guess in the way they use it, I don't know. Kasi they refer to us as brown or yellow or white. I mean in the Chinese language, di ba? Ganun naman ang description. So, but when translated, magkakaroon talaga siya ng racial undertones. Maybe there are occasions, I would not say that there aren't, but based on my experience, wala naman. In Wuhan, wala naman.
Yeah.
Wala akong experience. Especially post-COVID.
Alright. Sige. Julius, in Japan? Related cases?
Oh, okay. So, if you remember, I told you something about the cluster-based approach and how problematic it is, diba? So, why is it problematic? Because the government has identified groups, and these groups, if you talk about social hierarchy, these groups are the, yung mga nasa laylayan. So, these are the at-risk groups. So, for example, those who are technical interns, and technical interns are usually Vietnamese people and Filipinos. So what the government did was to test a dormitory where these technical interns are residing, and then they found out that there's a spike of infection in that dormitory. So that will be brought out to media, and then so identified sila, okay, so Vietnamese and Filipinos, okay, living in this dormitory. And then there are also other kinds of discrimination. So hindi lang naman siya racial discrimination, but also I think it's more of socioeconomic discrimination. Kasi kunwari mga sex workers, so they're also identified as very vulnerable to coronavirus kasi tinest yung group nila eh. Okay, and then they found out that this group, okay, is also very vulnerable or maraming mga infected na coronavirus. So what happened because of this cluster-based approach, only those who were tested are groups who belong to, marginalized positions in the society. Those who lack security, those who lack voice, sila yung mga na-identify because of this cluster-based approach. And I'm not just talking here of race, but also in terms of socioeconomic inequalities. So kahit yung mga Hapon, and different kinds of, Japanese people who are poor, who work in this particular industry, who are, who don't belong to that, upper class. Okay, so that's the problem of cluster-based approach. So that cluster-based approach na sinasabi ko kanina, it was problematic because it led to structural discrimination and different layers. Hindi lang race, kundi discrimination against certain industries or certain groups. So yun yung nangyari. Kaya I really can't say that it's basically racial discrimination, but I want to think more of a broader kind of discrimination, which also involves Japanese people. But that discrimination involves people who are in the lower ranks of the society. So yun yung nangyari. Kaya it's really problematic, yung cluster-based approach. And
Right.
it's very problematic now.
Okay. And I believe like it's not only me who first heard this term, no, and its implication to Japanese society. Thank
Right.
you, Doc Julius. Now let's move on to another subtopic here. I think most of our viewers are curious about your mental health. Sabi ng isa, how did you cope with the emotional stress during the lockdown, especially that you guys are aware from your family and friends in the Philippines? Sige, who wants to go first? Kath?
Ang hirap. Ang hirap i-explain ng feeling. Kasi, ang hirap, especially yung Christmas and New Year, nalalampasan mo without even getting a chance to go home. Iba kasi yung hindi ka lang umuwi, sa wala ka talagang chance to go home. So, ngayon kasi, you can actually go home but only with emergency cases and you have to get the re-entry permit before going to the Philippines. And for approval pa yon. So, yung mga cases lang like medical situations, especially ng family, then you get to go home. Pero kung mga for vacation or visit, then you won't be allowed unless i-surrender mo na fully yung ano mo, yung visa mo. So that's yun lang yon. So with how we are trying to deal with the mental stress, foreigner ka, tapos you can even get to go home. Dito kasi sa Korea, medyo ano naman siya, tawag dito, as I've been mentioning, hindi masyadong na-suppress yung mga personal or mga social activities. Lessened lang siya when in terms to quantity, but still you can still get to meet your friends. Wala namang lockdown. So, hindi naman siya ganun kahigpit. More on self-precaution, following yung mga government-provided instructions, yung mga directives nila. But mostly sa mental, yun lang talaga yung pinakamahirap, yung thinking na hindi ka makauwi anytime. So, kung paano siya ino-overcome, I still don't know. Hindi ko pa nga rin sure kung meron na bang inside me na nag-grow na mga kalungkutan. Hindi ko pa ma-identify. Maybe because, parang ayoko pa siyang isipin, and thank God okay yung family ko pa sa Philippines. Though malungkot yung Facebook, puro mga sad news yung mga nakikita mo, especially with the friends. So far, yun lang naman. Ngayon, ang pinagpapanalangin nilang mostly ng mga tao, just pray lang lagi na healthy. Which is also a positive change sa mga tao na before we hope for every material thing, every mga material na bagay, but now we only pray for health and the safety of everyone. I think that's helped a lot also.
Right. Doc Julius, ikaw, how's your mental health?
All right, two things. Okay, first, I have a big family in the Philippines. So if you have that kind of family, and you can talk to anytime and anywhere, yeah, by video chat or video conference. And then the second thing, yung support network. Well, as you can see in the Philippines, diba, Filipinos around the world, what binds us together is religion, diba, sa simbahan. Okay, so different yan, Protestants and then Catholics. Okay, so I think that's one support network, that binds us together as Filipinos. So yeah, hindi nakauwi, pero syempre, pwede namang after church gathering, so you can, celebrate together Christmas or celebrate New Year, yung mga ganon. So yeah, so those are two things how I coped with mental health, but these are not, prescriptive, okay? Kasi, I'm coming from a privileged position. So, hindi naman lahat ng tao, lahat ng Pinoy dito sa Japan, may ganong klaseng privilege. Some really, live alone. They don't have really, big families to rely on sa Pilipinas. So, yeah. So those two things, like family, communication, and then the support of networks here in Japan in terms of religion. So may mga Catholics, may mga born-agains, may Iglesia ni Cristo. So that's how they cope. I guess
Right.
one of the million ways to cope.
Kasi I was about to ask, may mga nagka-counsel ba sa inyo? Especially that, no, in Japan, that's a serious case or serious issue, no?
Yes,
So meron naman,
Yes, okay.
Filipino
There's a
networks.
so in every local office, merong mga consultants. I don't know if it's a psychological I don't know the term. Okay, so may mga ganon na pwede ka makipag-consult in different languages. So hindi lang English, may Tagalog, may Chinese, may Korean, and it's mandated by law. This kind of wellness, emotional wellness being. I just don't know how effective it is because I haven't heard of Filipino residents here in Japan, utilizing those kinds of services offered by the government. Okay, so I'm not really sure about about the efficacy or the effectiveness. Pero
Right.
yeah, there are policies, there are programs in place.
That's amazing, no, that na kahit nasa ibang bansa, Filipinos are really, they're bond, no? They're
Yes.
bonded together. How about sa Wuhan, Rob? Alam ko, kakaunti lang ang mga Pinoy dyan. How did you cope or how with this?
Paano ba? I don't know. Well, kasi we were mostly stuck in the building. So, and I'm the only Filipino in campus. I know there are other Filipino students I think in Ligong, which is beside the which is beside my university, pero umuwi na rin. So, and I haven't interacted with the Filipino community because iba rin yung community ng students and then the working community. So, in terms of mental health, well, hindi naman ako nabaliw or hindi naman ako nagkaroon ng episodes of talagang breakdown or anything. Of course, there are times that you have to think na bakit ngayon, bakit dito, bakit ganun ang nangyayari. But these are just, I think, attempts to reflect, no, on the present, kumbaga. And then I try to find other things to do, no, kasi nga mag-isa lang ako. May classes naman, online classes, so I got busy with the online classes, so I think that's one thing. Second, I have volunteer work. That's why I volunteered, actually, kasi yung volunteer work, it takes you out, no? It takes you out from the, zoning to somewhere else and brings your attention to something else. So, and that took much of the time. And then I have ano man tawag dito? Ano sasabihin ko? I forgot na. Ayan, I have books, no? I have Netflix. So again, I maybe just like Julius, this is a more privileged point of view, no? Because I have access to these things, no? Paano yung wala? Yeah. But I guess it was so mental health wise, it wasn't really a problem for me. There were counseling services here in Wuhan, in the university and in Wuhan, no? And they publicized that in WeChat, in the official accounts of Wuhan and official accounts of news organizations like Wuhan Repao and things like that. No, they say na, or they announce na may mga ganitong services, and they just give the contact details if you want to those to have those services. Nag-private message si Sydney, sabi niya Regan Mian.
Yeah.
Regan Mian kasi is the popular, is the signature dry noodle food here in Wuhan. And I was only able to eat that when I was able to get out of the campus. Kasi kahit sa canteen, hindi sila nag-serve. Ang sinaserve lang nila yung gulay. I think I showed the picture earlier. So puro gulay lang talaga yung diet nun. Yeah.
Right. Okay, thank you. Some people are asking about your love lives daw, but siguro later, no? If we still have time. But we have one more question. I think this is the most popular question asked by our viewers. If you are aware, what are the economic policies that the government has implemented to its citizens, including to foreigners, no, or international residents? Was there any economic aid provided to its citizens as compensation during the lockdown? Sige, Rob, ikaw na mag-umpisa.
Sa Wuhan, I think they have for small and medium businesses kasi nga kung yung mga malls, yung mga large shops, wala silang problema after the lockdown kasi they still have it there, right? The malls are still there. The big brands are still there. Pero yung mga maliliit na tindahan, for example, yung mga small milk tea shops. Alam mo naman dito sa Wuhan, ang daming milk tea shops. And small ones, no? Or yung mga kainan lang, mga ready to cook. Bibili ka lang para ganon. So, yung mga yan, nagsasara na sila, no? And mahirap kasi one, yung puhunan nagamit na rin to survive during the lockdown. And then I think yung difficulty to get new employees kasi for example, yung milk tea shop dito sa loob ng campus, yung mga trabahador nila nakakuha na ng ibang trabaho elsewhere when they went back home kasi nga nag-lockdown na dito eh. So hindi na makabalik. So ang tendency sa kanila is to either to decrease the size of their services or to totally close it down. At I think I don't know if you know this, but somewhere in Guanggu, There's one mall there, yung International something.
World City Plaza.
Yung across,
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's it. Ano na siya, close. May nag-close na rin dun eh. The entire building kasi puro mga small shops siya eh. Parang malalaking shops lang dun yung mga apparel like Uniqlo and H&M. But other than that, lahat sarado na. Okay, so yung mga yon. But I think the Wuhan government provided assistance like financial assistance. I'm not sure if it is in a form of a loan or what for them to either recuperate yung lost capital or to reinvest in business, no?
Right.
Like that.
Doc Julius. Sorry. Doc Julius, ayuda from Japanese government, meron ba?
Oh yeah. So it's 100,000 yen. So if you convert it to the current exchange rate, it's somewhere in between 45,000 pesos to 50,000 pesos, and that's a one-time stimulus. All residents, whether you're Japanese or non-Japanese, and whether you are high earner or a low income earner. So we received that during the peak of the pandemic. So it was transferred to our bank accounts. Yeah, so that kind of aid. Pero like as economists would say, babalik din sa aming mga taxpayers yan, right? Okay, so if you really study the flow of and different economic policies, so yeah, it's ayuda, it's 100,000 yen, but of course, that would also be, babawi, in the, when it's normalized, when the economy is normalized, but it's better than nothing because it was really very helpful, yung economic aid.
Naiinggit si Rob, sabi nila wala sila. But may scholarship naman no? Kasi naiwan ka sa... Ikaw.
Hello? Parang nawala kayo. Or is it me?
No, wala.
Oo. So, yung...
So I guess it's your turn now to answer.
Okay. So, habang naghihintay tayo sa moderator natin.
I'm back.
Yeah, you're back.
Yeah, Kath, ikaw, your story about the ayuda, nakatanggap ka ba? Or yung Koreans?
Yung ayuda dito sa Korea, sobrang creative, sobrang dami. With local and foreign residents and multicultural families also. So with the local, they had this parang gift card, also helping yung mga businesses around their community. Yung ibig sabihin, yung laman ng card na yon, you can only use that within the community. So it's like helping those yung mga nahihirapan mag-business, mga marts, small marts, mga struggling businesses. At the same time, yung tulong na din dun sa household within the community. So multicultural family or local, kung yung mga local residents, mga citizens, they both receive that. With the foreigners specifically, last year meron din pero selected area. But now, very recent, makikita natin sa lahat ng halos yung mga Pilipino nagpo-post sila recently So yung buong area ng Gyeonggi-do, it's one of the largest provinces dito. So kapag nasa Gyeonggi-do ka nakatira, apparently sa Seoul ako nakatira, so wala akong natanggap. Pero yung mga foreign nationals na nasa Gyeonggi-do area, they just have to register yung kanilang details, and then yung card, the blue, something like it's an ATM card, merong laman yun na 100,000 that you can also use doon sa community establishments within your area. So it's like a win-win siya. Sobrang creative. Yung struggling businesses within the community is earning at the same time. At the same time, nagkaroon ng ayuda both foreigners and local residents dun sa area. So creative sila. So sana maging example siya sa Philippines. Hello, Philippines!
Minsan talaga mapapasana all ka na rin minsan
Pero ako personally, wala akong na-receive. Kasi nung time na namigay sa Seoul, I was holding a student visa. So hindi qualified yung mga student visa. But now na working visa naman ako, sa ibang lugar naman namigay. So let's wait, baka may isa pang round sa Seoul.
All right. And we'll hope for that, no? Baka
Kaya
naman.
nga, baka naman. Kasali din
Alright.
ako.
Yeah, siguro our last ano na lang no, siguro let's reflect no. What do you think now that you mentioned all of this that you said a while ago no, the economic aid given by the government, the Filipino networks helping each other no. Um citizens helping citizens, private sector helping private sector. What do you think the governments there are doing that works for their citizens that we can perhaps replicate here in the Philippines? Yeah, okay. So what do you think, ano yung dapat nating gawin na nagwo-work sa ibang bansa na magbe-benefit tayo na bilang Filipino? Sige, sinong gusto mauna?
Exam yata to eh. Exam
I'm
ba to?
sorry?
Exam?
Exam.
Presentation, no? Sa araw ng kagitingan.
Oo. Ayan.
Sige,
Sige, I'll
Rob.
start na. Sige,
Kath.
go. Okay, I'll start na para tawag dito, I think yung pinaka magandang example sa Korea is they have this three things, the openness, the transparency, and creative innovation. Also, yung government agency cooperation, sobrang effective. Sobrang laking tulong. Yung agency to agency, they started to see the strength ng bawat isa and then they vault in, sa madaling salita, and then boom, solution. Especially yung tracing, kasi that's how, parang hindi ko pa naririnig sa Philippines kung gaano katindi, gaano kalakas yung tracing nila. But with here kasi, just your mobile phone, QR code, diba? For sure, napakaraming magagaling na IT people sa atin, sobrang being talented. But why not? Why not implement it also? Here sa Korea, iganyan mo lang yung phone mo, you will be traced wherever. Yung trajectory mo, saan ka huling kumain, saan mo huling swipe yung card mo, they will be able to trace you. And this is only for yung sharing of information, yung data sharing. It was only done for the sole purpose of lessening or tracing yung talagang meticulous tracing sila. Kasi kung nasaan, yung ikot ba, yung talagang focused yung tracing, hindi yung parang nangangapa, nanguhula lang everywhere. Kasi, nasa 5G world na tayo. So, dapat mas advanced, especially i-maximize natin yung mga technology. And for sure, Philippines is not behind. I don't think we are behind. It's just that wala lang nangunguna to do so. And yung cooperation talaga ng government is very important. And I think it's about time na magtulungan yung agency, yung strength ng bawat isang agency, then try nila, and then later on na sila mag-take on credits kung para kanino yun. But for now, for the benefit of the people, I hope magkaisa muna sila for the meantime. Later na silang magpa-print ng mga plaka nila kung saan nila gustong idikit. So, yun.
All right. Thank you, Kath. Actually, in some LGUs in the Philippines, like Naga City, we do have that contact tracing. And relatively effective siya. Pero kasi baka naman dahil maliit lang ang Naga, kaya nagagamit siya. But I agree with you that digital governance can actually provide
yung dito sa
lessen.
Korea, oo, may mga areas din naman, may mga, alam mo yun, syempre may mga restaurant na hindi naman talaga sobrang laki, di ba? Yung mga franchise level. Meron silang mga simpleng papel and then you get to write your number and yun, sa angkang area. That's it, as simple as that. Yung tracing kasi, I think it will minimize the problem later. Hindi kayo magtatago-taguan. Ayun lang.
Okay. Thank you, Kath. Doc Julius, insight.
Oh, okay. Before I answer, yung question like what Philippines can learn from Japan. Just first, okay, I just want to say that I don't want to glorify, this country, okay? So marami rin silang mga lapses, marami rin mga shortcomings ng Japan. Okay, so but if there's one thing that Japan has been doing, which I hope that Philippines is also doing, is to first and foremost consider this COVID pandemic as a public health issue and not a military issue. Kasi in the Philippines, this is considered something more of military. Okay, so how is contact tracing done, and a lot of military protocols and all that. But never here in Japan, they consider it as a public health issue, and because of that, healthcare workers are prioritized. So for example, there's a vaccine rollout. So ang first priority are not the soldiers, not government officials, but the first priority are healthcare workers for vaccination, like nurses and then doctors and then other kinds of healthcare professionals. And then second to that, yung elderly. Kasi nga yung demographics ng Japan, mas marami talagang senior citizens or elderly. Nowhere to be found in that priority list of vaccine rollouts are military or members of the security or something like that. Okay? Kasi for them, okay, the first priority, the first defense nga is our healthcare workers. So I think if there's something that has to be learned here from Japan, which Philippines can learn, is that you really put it as you really frame everything as a public health issue, as a health issue. Hindi siya pwedeng maging military issue or whatsoever. Okay, so yeah, so I think that's one thing to be learned. I'm saying this, and I'm not saying this because Japan is, is perfect or has done a lot of good things. No, okay. So if we read the newspapers, marami ring kapalpakan, marami ring corruption, marami ring mga bagay na hindi magaganda. But one thing that we can learn in the country, Philippines, is that we have to put this as a health issue. Yeah.
And trust science, no?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
very good.
Yeah.
Very good. 100, Doc Julius. Rob.
Hirap.
It's your turn to recite, Rob.
Well, tama si Doc Julius doon, ano? Treat this as a public health issue. It's not an issue of political whatever. So yung sinasabi ni Kat na saka na muna yung mga patarp natin, ano? May panahon para dyan. Unahin muna yung pending case. No? I think what can be learned from Wuhan, well, of course, just like Japan and definitely just like South Korea, the Wuhan experience is not a perfect experience. No, we may be living a normal life now here, but it doesn't mean everything was smooth sailing. No, ang daming kapalpakan din, if you may, no, at the beginning kasi parang no one is prepared how to handle a pandemic anyway, right? So there were a lot of lapses, no. So from being reactive, naging proactive yung government, and I think that's the best thing to do. First, yung pagiging reactive nila kasi dumadami yung cases, so they respond to how cases are being reported. But eventually, they did something proactive by planning ahead, moving forward. What do we do? So that we can maintain a particular status. No? So, for example, I'm not saying the Philippines should build hospitals within 10 days, but Wuhan did build 2 hospitals. Okay? 1,000 beds hospitals in a matter of weeks. Okay? So, not to build hospitals, but to see alternatives. Like, katulad ngayon, ang dami kong nakikita, wala daw hospital beds, no? Why not consider having makeshift hospitals? Because the hospitals they did here are makeshift hospitals. They're not permanent ones. So I think it's a temporary solution for this particular demand, right? The other thing is yung app, the use of the app. I think that's a very, very good innovation, a very proactive move, because they started parang a citywide launching of QR code. So every place has QR code, and then you scan. No, you don't have to fill up any forms. You just scan the code, and then they will know you entered the building. You scan the code again, and then you left the building. So alam nila what at this particular time period, for example, from 2:10 to 2:12, you were inside this building. At lahat ng tao na nasa loob ng building na, matitrace agad nila. And I think that's good. No? And it applies, for example, in the metro, in the buses. So may mga ganun ng initiatives later on. So I think yung pagiging proactive ng Wuhan, and I think that's not just Wuhan but Hubei, which was replicated in other areas in China. I think that's something to learn from. Kasi parang ang nakikita ko ngayon sa Philippines, how they respond is very reactive. Dumami yung cases, nag-lockdown ulit. But what are they doing during the period that they are locking people in their homes? No? Kasi when we were placed on lockdown, yung gobyerno dito, ginawa na to, ginawa na yan, ginawa na yon. So when it opened, meron na siyang mechanisms to control the spread of the virus. Okay? But if you just lock people down just to control the numbers rising up without making any interventions, okay, policy-wise, infrastructure-wise, or anything, parang ang hirap naman nun. No? Parang walang mangyayari. Okay.
Right.
Ang dami ko sinabi.
No,
But that's coming from, I don't know, my political science.
Right. Actually, Doc Sydney Bata of Chinese Studies program here is telling us, hope LGU officials are watching this. Don't worry, record this and we'll share it to our LGU officials. Okay.
Oh.
Wow, there's a lot to unpack, no? I think hearing you guys, if there's one thing I realize, while listening to your to our excellent panel members here, is this: I think we have to bring ourselves back up again together. No, we cannot work in silos. We may be separated by seas, but we Filipinos are all linked. No, we the interoperability, kumbaga, no. Before the pandemic, we are successful because we have other communities who are working with us. Public sector helping private sectors helping private sectors, citizens helping citizens. So we all need to take commonality into an account to address those hindering factors that you guys mentioned. And we keep also emphasizing that all of us have a role to play in helping each other in a broader way for a system to come back up to work for us again. So I believe as a advocate of collaborative governance, collaborative efforts bring collaborative recovery. Bayanihan, ika nga. So bayanihan, not just during pandemic, but also during peacetime. So yeah, as they say, we are only as strong as our weakest link, right? So yeah, it's so hard to synthesize everything because we have excellent speakers right now, but I want to end it like that. So we hope to see you all in our next lecture, and we keep on praying na kayong tatlo, Doc Julius, Kathy, and Rob, na maging healthy, no? Umiwas at keep in touch para hindi masyado mabother sa depression or sa issue about mental health, no? So for more updates on the Congress and future events by our organizers, that's UPKRC and Chinese Studies Program, you may visit their Facebook pages. So for example, sa UPKRC, that's www.facebook.com/UPKRC and their YouTube channel. And also we have here a quick plug. I think Pam of UPKRC will post it right now. There you go. So UPKRC is inviting all of you and they're having a public lecture entitled Between Satire and Nationalism, the Transcoded Pantheon of Hell in the Webtoon Sin Kwa Hamke, along with the Gods 2010-2012 on April 14, Wednesday at 4 p.m. Details are being shown right now. All right, so that's how we want to formally conclude this afternoon session. Thank you, everyone, and especially to our organizers, UPKRC, Doc Mia, and Doc Sydney of Chinese Studies Program. Thank you, and again, enjoy the rest of your day. Bumoto sa darating na eleksyon. Thank you, guys.